What I'm about to talk to you about is not just a regional conflict. What we're witnessing right now over the past 48 hours in southern Syria, in the Druze mountains, is a humanitarian disaster and a moral red line. It is literally ethnic cleansing with the approval of the Western enlightened world, including the Trump administration, that instead is obsessed with blood libels against Israel as we are giving aid to the population of a genocidal enemy in Gaza in the middle of a war that they started, that they are still fighting to destroy us, and still holding on to our hostages. Every day the world is focused on bad things Israel is doing in Gaza while ethnic cleansing is taking place in Syria. And this didn't start now. This was happening at the end of 2024, soon after the successful toppling of the Assad regime. I produced a video back then on how Druze leaders had voted to request for Israel to stay in southern Syria to protect them from the ethnic cleansing of the Jolani Sunni jihadi regime that just took over Syria. That was beginning back then, is continuing now, and it will always continue so long as Jolani's in charge and no one's protecting the Jews. Again, over the past 2 days, the new Sunni jihadist regime in Syria has massacred hundreds of Druze in southern Syria, invaded the largest Druze city of Sueda, and the world remains shamefully silent. Have you read anything about it in the news? Have you seen anything in the news? Some in the West claim that the Sunni militants killing the Druze right now, they're not Jolani fighters, right? That's how they excuse it. Well, plenty of video evidence shows otherwise, as we see tanks that only Jolani's army of Syria has, soldiers in Jolani's Syrian army uniforms in the streets of the Druze cities, humiliating them by cutting off their mustaches and then killing them.
شيخ روح ليش جوابك؟ ما شاطر غشيتني انت غشيتنا يا ابو اسلام خليت لك شوي كفو بس ما شاطر بس صار دم يقطع عمرك بس النص شله شوارب وهي لعن ابوك على شواربك يا ابن النبي يا خنازير السك هذيك زين فرسك لك فرسك حارقهم مش عم يقتلوك هو لا ما تغلط ثبت وسن ثبت
خنازير خنازير
دم خنزير خنزير لك ما اخش في قليله لا والقران تعرف ايش معه هذا؟
هيك خنازير
حشوات يا خنزير حشوات يا كلب حشوات قتل هذا هو حشوات يا كلب حشوات
هذا
يا كلب
هذا
Understand, the Druze are a small, tightly knit community, most of whom live in Syria, with the vast majority concentrated in the city of Sueda, that Jolani's troops have invaded over the past 2 days with thousands of other Sunni jihadi ISIS fighters. Just days ago, this same jihadi regime was targeting the Alawite minority of Syria, lighting up entire forests on fire to terrorize their villages and burn people out of their homes. These are not isolated incidents. This is ethnic cleansing against the minorities in Syria, and it's happening in real time just across Israel's northern border. And it endangers us because they want to do it to us. And the international community, including voices in Washington, D.C., are not just silent about this ethnic cleansing taking place, but they are pushing for Israel to sign a normalization agreement with this new Syrian regime, Jolani, and have them added to the Abraham Accords, even as the blood of massacred innocents soaks the earth and the numbers are rising. This is insanity. The Israeli Air Force has launched precision strikes against Syrian regime targets, tanks, armed pickups, and weapons caches, who are all advancing towards the Druze population centers and the city of Sueda. access routes have been hit to block further attacks and restrict movement of Jolani regime forces to the Druze areas. Multiple Syrian sources now confirm that Syrian commanders, some of them are dead, among them Khalid al-Zuwabi, commander of the Busra sector near the Jordanian border, Abdel Fattah al-Musafriya, Abu Yaakov, other names of senior commanders in Jolani's armies. These aren't just soldiers. They are commanders in the Jolani army leading the brutal crackdown and ethnic cleansing of the Druze. But it gets worse. In the town of Al-Falah, the Jolani regime humiliated Sheikh Mehej Shanin. In the picture, forgive me if I pronounce his name wrong, a revered Druze leader nearly 80 years old. He was filmed, tears in his eyes, by Jolani forces humiliating him by shaving off his mustache before reports emerged confirming that he was killed by the Jolani forces. Let that sink in. They killed an elderly religious leader in his home after storming his village. And he is just one of many that the Jolani forces both humiliated by shaving their mustaches and then murdering. According to local witnesses, Jolani regime forces carried out field executions inside homes. Villages like Walja and Al-Thayla are now sites of mass displacement. We don't even know how many are dead. And the destruction on those places is severe. Israeli Defense Minister Yisrael Katz has made it clear, and I quote, "The Syrian regime must leave the Druze in Swaida and withdraw its forces. We have warned Israel will not abandon the Druze in Syria. The IDF will continue to strike regime forces, and we will escalate our response if our warnings are ignored." End quote. The Druze community in Israel issued a powerful and heartbreaking statement, and I quote, "A shocking and brutal massacre is happening. Women, children, the elderly murdered in cold blood. We expect Israel to act just as we stand on the front lines defending this country. Silence is no longer an option." They basically want more action by Israel, which I agree with. Understand, this isn't about politics. It's about moral clarity. The Druze in southern Syria are being slaughtered. And even though the Trump administration is silent, in addition to the whole enlightened Western world that screams about human rights, yes, Israel must act to protect the Druze and protect Israelis, our northern border, because if they murder the Druze, then they come to us. Anyone talking about the Abraham Accord with his jihadist Jolani regime in Syria is disconnected from reality. The only way to truly protect our northern border from these jihadist forces moving forward and for a future, a safe future, and to protect the Druze is not by containment, not by temporary airstrikes, not even by sending in IDF ground troops to help fight right now to then pull out. But there's only one way, by liberating southern Syria. This is not just a strategic necessity. It is our moral imperative. Southern Syria is not foreign to us. It is the biblical tribal territory of the tribe of Menashe from the Bible. Returning there, securing it, and Israel, the Jewish state of Israel, remaining there permanently is the only path forward. This is morality. That is leadership. That is us, the Jewish people, stepping into our historic role as a light unto the nations, as protectors of life and justice, even beyond our existing borders. Anything less is abandoning our mission as a people. This is what it truly means to be a light into the nations, not by chasing the approval of a morally confused world where evil is good and black is white, that coddles and appeases the evil jihadists taking over Western universities and public squares in New York City, Los Angeles, London, Paris, Toronto, Melbourne, and Berlin, but by having the courage to do what is right and moral, even when it's unpopular, especially when it's hard. Saving lives, standing up for truth, and pulling humanity back from the abyss that it's blindly walking towards. Not everyone might be comfortable spreading these truths. But if you are, join me. Humanity is starving for truth and morality right now. Masking progressive, really regressive immorality as moral, and standing up for what Israel must do right now to save the Druze from ethnic cleansing and protect our border from these Sunni ISIS jihadists is morality. That means Israel liberating southern Syria, biblical Menashe tribal lands.
سلام يجي يشيلوه لك يلا حيهم
Now I want to go a little bit deeper with you for a moment. The nation state of Syria is dead, and we must stop pretending otherwise. The old Syria we knew, built on the failed Sykes-Picot Agreement in the beginning of the 20th century that lumped together Alawites, Druze, Christians, Kurds, and Sunnis under one artificial flag, is gone. It died long ago with Bashar al-Assad's genocidal campaign and the collapse of centralized control in Syria. What remains today is not a nation state. It is a fractured war zone with different tribes and ethnicities having their own militias, a patchwork of religious and ethnic enclaves held together only by tyranny, foreign militias, or in today's case, Sunni jihadist warlords backed by the foreign Islamist power of Turkey. Yeah, that's how Jolani gets his power right now, from Turkey. The so-called new Syrian government under Jolani is no more legitimate than ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and yet some in the U.S. government are pushing to normalize them. The Trump administration dropped sanctions on them, and now there are quiet diplomatic efforts, and some not so quiet, to bring this new Jolani Syrian regime into the Abraham Accords framework. This is not just naive. That's absolutely dangerous. Israel must wake up and act and not take part in that. We cannot sit silently while the Druze in southern Syria, family of our Israeli Druze community, are being massacred within eyesight of our border. We cannot let another minority be wiped out while we pretend that this is someone else's war, especially as it's on our border. Israel must declare southern Syria cannot be left to jihadists to rule. The Druze must not be massacred. U.S. must place back sanctions on Jolani's terror group. And each persecuted minority must be allowed to secede and protect themselves in Syria. And Israel must liberate southern Syria and remain there forever to protect our northern border from the ruling Sunni jihadis and protect the Druze, as I said earlier. There will never be peace or security by forcing Christians, Alawites, Druze, and Kurds to live under a jihadist regime that openly targets them for extinction. They will soon be totally gone if Israel does nothing, and the world is doing nothing. Southern Syria is not a humanitarian crisis. It is an ethnic cleansing in process that poses a strategic threat to Israel and a moral blight on the whole world. If Israel doesn't act, the Sunni jihadists will be on Israel's southern border, ready to invade whenever they want to. That's not just bad policy, that's an invitation for jihadi violence against us. As Jolani said after he toppled the Assad regime, his next target was Jerusalem, and we can't ignore that. Israel must immediately implement a clear defense policy. No hostile regime, Shiite or Sunni, will be allowed to threaten Israel from Syria territory ever again. Just as we maintain security control over Judea and Samaria to protect our people from terror in Ramallah and Jenin, we must do the same in southern Syria and remain there and liberate the area. The Druze regions of southern Syria should be placed under Israeli protection and, if necessary, supported in forming autonomous zones for them to defend themselves and rule themselves. The Abraham Accords are not for Islamic jihadists. The Abraham Accords were never meant for regimes that burn villages and butcher minorities. The Abraham Accords were meant to unite moderate, forward-thinking governments willing to live in peace with Israel and reject extremism. The idea that we would bring in a regime to the Abraham Accords that slaughters Druze, massacres Alawites, Christians, and operates like a Sunni ISIS clone with a new flag is a perversion of the entire Abraham Accords vision. Israel is not obligated to appease genocidal fanatics for the sake of a meaningless photo op. We are obligated to protect our borders, our people, and the innocent minorities being hunted down like animals just over the hill. History will look back on Sykes-Picot as a colossal failure, a Western imperial fantasy that crammed hostile sects together and handed them over to tyrants to keep them quiet. First it was the Assad regime in Syria, now it's the Jolani regime in Syria. But tyranny is tyranny, whether it speaks Persian or Arabic, wears a suit or a suicide vest. Israel must lead with moral clarity. Because if we don't, no one will. We stand up for morality and biblical values. The rest of the world, gone. By the way, anybody hear Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, or Dave Smith talking about this ethnic cleansing taking place in Syria right now, and how good Christians and Americans should be thinking about it and talking out against it? These Sunni jihadists who are massacring the Druze and the Alawites will also massacre Jews, Christians, and all Americans. But Smith, Candace, Tucker Carlson, they won't talk about that. We do. And we, the proud Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel today, will overcome this evil, even as our allies are silent, and even, some of them, complicit in it. Strengthen your faith in the one above. The Jewish people are turning into the light to the nations we are supposed to be. We're a part of it, and growing into our place and to our role of behaving as we're supposed to behave, despite the noise from the world and despite the screaming from the world and the blood libels against us. That's all part of it. Stick with us, support us, strengthen your faith in God. Am Yisrael Chai. If you are not yet a subscriber to our daily, belief-based, inspiring, politically incorrect, truthful videos about Israel, the Jewish people, and the freedom-loving world, what are you waiting for? Go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe today. And yes, we are a donor-based operation. We need your donations for support in order to make these videos and get our videos seen and do all the work we do. So every once in a while, whether a large donation or a small donation, just go to pulseofisrael.com and click on the donate button. Shalom, everyone, and thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.